Oh, I guess I should start talking since we're on. Are we? Yeah, I see the red's on. We're broadcasting somewhere. Sometimes you got to hit me with a head. Something. I can't even talk today. This will be a fun show. There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday on IE Newswire. A little live at 5 again on IE Newswire at Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Second time for emphasis coming on. Lots of stuff to get hold of today. Assemblymember Kevin Kiley will be on later on in the hour to give us an update on the Gavin recall and some of his bills and some of the things that are going on in education of doing that. And of course, we've got a cornucopia of stuff to go through. Not only the racist Cicely Myritt Cruz from UTLA going on, Peter Thiel on woke American companies. Lots of stuff to get on today, but let's see what we have in store right off the get-go. El Presidente Joe Biden says, oh, we've got to do something about these ghost guns. Ghost guns may walk up by themselves and kill you deader than a gun you buy from Colt or Ruger or somewhere else. They totally miss the point of the use or the how a gun works. A gun by itself cannot do anything to you. Just like a 9/16 wrench, a hammer, a car, a boat, anything else, a golf club. A golf club does not take itself out of the bag and hit you over the head or knock a stupid ball around or whatever you want to do with it. It was, if you put it in the golf bag and nobody else disturbs it, you could come back 342,000 years later and it's still going to be in the golf bag. Inanimate objects do not kill or harm or do anything on their own. They have to have a human being behind them, operating, directing them, setting them up to do this. It is not the object itself. We're going to run a clip of the real El Presidente, Kamala Harris, as they're announcing the bill on this, and pay close attention to the facial expressions on Miss El Presidente. So here we go.
The child. I have seen children who were traumatized by the loss of a parent or sibling. And I have fought my entire career to end this violence and to pass reasonable gun safety laws. Time and again,
let's stop right there. Kate Steinle from San Francisco, and I think you were DA or up there of that, died from a gun operated by an illegal alien in this country who came over 40, the gun went off by itself excuse. I do not see you securing the border, which Mr. El Presidente put you in charge of, which is running out of control, and we'll see how that works. We'll have Governor Greg Abbott from Texas here in a little bit. You're not preventing criminals, whether they are in this country or coming into this country illegally. You're not prosecuting them and keeping them in jail where they should be. You're trying to blame an inanimate object. Here we go with the rest of Mrs. El Presidente.
Progress has stalled. We've all asked, what are we waiting for? Because we aren't waiting for a tragedy, I know that. We've had more tragedy than we can bear. We aren't waiting for solutions either, because the solutions exist. They already exist.
Yes, Miss El Presidente, the solution is deport illegal aliens, close the border, finish the wall, put the Border Patrol back in shape. No sanctuary cities, states, or any of this other crapiola that you've been touting for decades. No, you think banning the gun is going to keep it out of the hands of criminals. You are a complete idiot. Hear from more Mrs. El Presidente.
People on both sides of the aisle want action. Real people on both sides of the aisle
Watch the smile.
want action. So all that is left is the will and the courage to act. And President Joe Biden has the will and the courage to act.
Yes, he does have the will and the courage to act by making the United States of America a more dangerous place, taking away your right not only to defend yourself from said criminals that you are harboring, but more importantly, that they do not mention. And the other purpose, and maybe even more important, the reason the Second Amendment of the Constitution is there, the right to keep and bear arms, is to protect you and the United States citizens from a tyrannical government. End of story, period. It's a constitutional right that you seem to be willing to strip down at every opportunity. Your little giggly face and emotional pleas, you can shove them where the sun don't shine, lady. And if Mr. Stupid El Presidente is going to sit up there, no, we're going to sign executive orders and I'm going to direct and all that stuff, we're going to see how this stuff all works out in court. Because this is a fundamental right. And it's in there. The Second Amendment is a protection of those First Amendment rights to keep you a free people, that keep a dictator, somebody that will pull at your emotional heartstrings to make a slave out of you. Pull up number 4, please. No amount of smiling from you will shade the truth, Miss Harris. It ain't gonna happen. Not on our watch. Not ever. Forget it. Speaking of that, we got Mr. El Presidente Joe Biden put Mrs. El Presidente Kamala Harris in charge of the border. And the crisis and the flow of that, 50% more coming over in March of children underage than February. I think it went from 12 to 18,000. When it first started in 19 and Trump about the same time, and I think this was the high point, I think it was 9,000, and then Trump started to put the policies in to stop this policy. Now it's exploding under Biden, and he says, oh, they're coming because I'm a nice guy. No, the mom from Honduras that sent her kids 9 and 10, marching, 2 months across the desert because you said come on in. These are the conditions in San Antonio, Texas, and this is a plea Governor Greg Abbott of Texas made to the Biden administration of the torture that he says is going on at the encampments where they're keeping minors. Here we go.
Immediately, the children should be moved to better staffed and better secured locations. And Texas Department of Public Safety and Texas Rangers must immediately investigate allegations of child sex abuse.
The governor's.
So they're cramming them in there like sardine cans. Sexual abuse. Some of them are not getting food and water. Key point, we had that about the elections, which was a lie in Georgia, the new election law. And Kamala Harris is supposed to be in charge of this, and these reports keep coming up daily. It's unflippin' believable that we can go through this, that we have to endure this torture, abuse of children in the United States. That's the record of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And no amount of giggling, laughing it off, saying I'm a nice guy is going to change the facts. And those are the facts as we see them each and every day coming up. We all hear Gulag Gavin and his, California this and that, and we keep presenting the statistics. California's at the bottom of everything, whether it's vaccine distribution, homelessness out of control, worst roads in the country, highest taxes, highest gas prices, highest home prices, all because of government policy. Made even worse by Gulag Gavin's executive orders that are getting tossed out of court on a regular basis. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, who's kept his economy open, has had a much better time, if not better, COVID results without killing their economy. Yet the federal government wants to go in there. They're shutting down still the cruise industry, which is big in Florida coming out of Miami-Dade County. They're killing that industry. That's billions of dollars going out the gazoo. And real people like this are losing their jobs because the CDC and the federal government will not allow cruises, citing COVID again and all this other crap when it's not even close to being the truth. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis at a press conference. Here we go.
They have nothing. And we at this point have nothing to give them. So that's why we're here. We're here because all of these people need to go back to work, and we are representing thousands more. Thank you.
You know, if you look around the country and compare the rest of the country, the state of Florida, in terms of the economy, our unemployment's 4.7% for the last report. Nationally, it's at 6.3%. And that's a result of us making sure people's right to work was protected, making sure businesses had the right to operate. This is something that's being imposed, this shutdown, by the CDC and the federal government. And so if you look at Miami-Dade County, even though the state of Florida is far below the national average in terms of the unemployment rate, here in Dade County, it's one of the highest unemployment rates in the entire state. And it's way higher than the state average and higher than even the national average. And the main reason for that is because the federal government and the CDC has locked down this industry for over a year. This is not reasonable. This is not rational. And guess what? If they say that cruising is not safe, even with widespread vaccine availability, all the testing you want, they have now antibody treatments that have been very effective. They have all these different things. It's a much different situation than a year ago. But guess what? People are still going to go on cruises. You know what they're going to do? Instead of flying to Miami, spending money to stay in our hotels, spending money to eat in our restaurants before they get on the ship, they're going to fly to the Bahamas. And they're going to get on the ships from the Bahamas, and they're going to spend the money in the Bahamas, and then they're going to do the same thing that they would have done. It just won't be helping the state of Florida, and it won't be helping our folks here who really depend on it.
So, Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida, understands economics 101. If you're not going to allow the cruise ships to sail out of your area, they're going to go somewhere else. Now, he said something there. Florida unemployment, the lowest, one of the lowest in the nation. Guess who's the highest, or one of the highest? California. Gulag Gavin's criticizing governors like Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis, calling them reckless, not mandating masks, all this other things. How dare you open your economy and let people work and earn a living? And he said, Ron DeSantis said, our government policy, as I can affect it, is to empower people. The federal government, El Presidentes, Biden and Harris, evil twin governors, Andrew Cuomo and Gulag Gavin, shut everything down, control you, and this is the result. You can see it clear as day this is called evidence. This is called facts. They are undisputable because we have the history of the past year to look over. And that little 2-minute clip by Ron DeSantis basically said it all. You want government control? You are going to have a crappy quality of life. You are not going to have opportunity, and that's the bottom line. You will be escaping America like the ones from Honduras, trying to get out of here because this will be a hellhole. We are not the richest country in the world. We are the brokest. No other country comes close to owing, $26 trillion? Think about that. We may have a lot of stuff, like the person who runs it up on the credit card, has new cars, fancy diamond rings, 97-inch big screen TV, and what? And then one day somebody comes and hauls all that stuff out because you can't pay for it. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what's coming if you don't stop this stuff. You don't think that there's woke companies, or that you think these companies that are saying this, this whole, diversity and this, and we're pulling out of we don't like the All-Star game in Georgia because of blah, da, 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 da. You think all these high-tech all these ones you worship and buy these products from are on you. This is Peter Thiel, founder of PayPal, on what these high-tech big companies, stores, online, guys delivering you stuff in trucks, not the guys, the companies delivering you stuff in trucks. This is what they consider themselves. Here's Peter Thiel at the Nixon Foundation from Breitbart. Here we go.
Something about the the woke politics inside these companies, the way they think of themselves is not really American companies, and it's somehow very, very difficult for them to have a sharp anti-China edge of any sort whatsoever. At Facebook, I'll give an example. There were, you had with the Hong Kong protests a year ago, the employees from Hong Kong were all in favor of the protests and free speech, but there were more employees at Facebook who were born in China than who were born in Hong Kong. And the Chinese nationals actually said that, it was just Western arrogance and you shouldn't be taking the Hong Kong side and things like that. And then the rest of the employees at Facebook, sort of stayed out of it. But the internal debate felt like people were actually more anti-Hong Kong than pro-Hong Kong.
There you go. Hong Kong, the free area. They're anti that, but pro-Chinese Communist Party. There's one of the guys that's on the inside of that. He's one of the big movers and players in sort of Silicon Valley. Co-founder of PayPal. Gazillionaire. Made tons of money in that tech industry. He's telling you the way it is on that. 100%, here you go. They're all after you. This one I just found unbelievable, of our favorite racist, Cicely Myert Cruz. He's back on the airways on Make It Plain with Mark Thompson, and I don't know where this guy's from, but it's not the Mark Thompson that's usually on the radio or the weatherman that you're. It's another Mark Thompson, but she's on this of that, going back and forth on the vaccine. She has some very incredible comments going on. Here's racist UTLA, United Teachers of LA president, Cicely Myert Cruz.
LA, we have to rely on LA County. And so, and then, you pit folks against each other, because what was happening in LA, which the superintendent and myself were saying, this is wrong. When you have nudie bars, you have the cannabis dispenser places, all of those folks were able to get vaccinations, and still, educators were not, and essential workers working in the grocery industry were not.
So I want to see from Cicely Myert Cruz where those, as she terms it, those working at the nudie bars were getting the vaccine before teachers. Yeah, it is about control. It's about you controlling our wallets and taking money out of our pockets and putting in yours and your union and brethren's teachers all across the state in your pocket. Well, you continue to screw over our education, lady. Racist. And to come up with them, prove your point. Don't just make stuff up and then say that. Where's this Mark Thompson guy? Make it plain. Well, make it plain. It's on your show. You're with your nodding your head or eyes wide open. Oh, how could this be? Why don't you fact check this, Mark Thompson, and make it plain? See if Cicely Tyson. No, not Cicely. Excuse me. Cicely Myert Cruz, not the actress. Cicely Myert Cruz is accurate in the things she says, or you just let that stuff go. We're giving you the chance to correct the record. We'll see if they do. Here's another one. On Make It Plain with Cicely Mart Cruz, UTLA president, and Mark Thompson. Here's what's really going on. Here's what they are afraid of each and every day as we work through this. Here we go.
To me, so I'll take the latter part first. It's astonishing to me to actually say, in 2020, it was fine for us to not have standardized testing because we were in a pandemic. Everybody was in agreement. But then when you turn around, we're like, hello, we're still in a pandemic. So you mean that you're trying to bring folks back to schools, re-entering schools to only test? Well, who wants to do that? It just makes zero sense. When we are
Okay, you make absolutely 0 sense, racist Cicely Mart Cruz. I have not, and I follow this stuff. I have not heard or one thing or one parent academic study, poll, or anything else that says we want our kids back to school only and for the exclusive reason to get standardized tests. Flip up number 4, please, with the picture real quick. Look at the little image we've got going on there. Mr. Thompson with the scholarly, concerned look on his face. Cicely Mart Cruz. But look at the behind her. Black Lives Matter with the mask on. Look at the kids with the masks on in a school. They're putting that image, if you are a reverend, Mr. Mark Thompson. I shudder to think what's going on in your church, because this is absolutely incredulous of what's going on. Do you see how they put these images? This was not done without any forethought. You're seeing the images that keep popping up when they want to. That's that subliminal cues. Black Lives Matter with the mask. Kids with school with their mask. Oh, the only reason you want your kids back in school is so they can get standardized tests, which you are afraid of because you suck at them in your school district. Your teachers fail. Especially in Los Angeles Unified School District. Of course, you want to get rid of any sort of standard because standards require accountability. And that's what you are against. You do not want to have any accountability for any of your teachers because they would have to be judged. Are they doing their job for the $100,000+ a year they make in salary and benefits for 9 months of work, which now they don't even have to show up for, and even if the kids are back in class, the teachers don't have to show up. They can Zoom in. It's time to fire them all. Well, first, say we're opening up. Schools fully open. Austin Butner, the superintendent down there of LA Unified School District, saying we're open the schools tomorrow. Teachers be back in class tomorrow. If you're not, we're going to find somebody else who can. You're in breach of your contract duties that you have with the school district and the UTLA to have your butts in here teaching kids. And yeah, maybe at the end of the year, we would like to know if they learned something. And if distance learning and you're doing such a great job, then why not have the standardized, why not have some sort of testing to compare to what we had, what the kids were before this? That's what you're afraid of. That's what you cannot stand. Because that would require accountability. And accountability is something that teachers en masse, through their union representatives, all across not only the state or the nation,
30 seconds.
You are against. So here's how we go on this each and every day. It's an absolute tragedy that we have to endure this kind of policies.
Here we go, 10
all across
seconds.
Our state.
Supply King, we got it!
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those.
There's that folky side guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all across the Inland Empire on the aforementioned AM band. Joining our video audience from IE Newswire on all the pertinent platforms going on there. We went through a lot of studies, and we were talking about education. We'll get to that in a minute, because our next guest has some updates, I think, on that. But first, we're going to talk about Gulag Gavin and the recall. And we have none other than the line, one of our favorite assemblymen from the state of California, Kevin Kiley. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Thanks for having me. As always, great to be with you.
So, before we get to the education part, one thing that struck, what was it? A couple weeks ago, we were almost within, I think, 30,000 signatures of the recall on. If I remember right, the Secretary of State was giving weekly updates. So far, something strikes me, but I've heard a big silencio since it got real close. Has there been any updates from the Secretary of State or when this thing is going to be on?
I think there was an update maybe a week ago or so, but, we're probably going to get the final numbers late April. And then, you're going to have, there's all these delays that they've built into the process now. So you got to have this period where people can withdraw their signatures if they want to. So, we'll know whether the requisite number have been gathered, I believe, by the end of April or so. And, I think that's almost certain that we will have the requisite number and then some. But it's still going to be a little while after that till the date of the election actually gets set.
So what about the big announcement by Gavin Newsom? Oh, we might possibly open up the state for 15 minutes for you to go outside for recess if you're real good and you obey for the next 2+ months on that. Kevin Kiley.
It's just a bizarre announcement, for the governor to say, we're going to reopen in a little over 2 months, maybe. But schools, we'll see. No, they don't have to open, and then masks are just kind of here to stay. It's incoherent, and it's also unlawful because the Emergency Services Act says the governor only gets emergency powers, and he has to terminate the state of emergency at the earliest possible date that conditions warrant. And so for him to say we're going to have lockdowns for 2+ more months at least, regardless of what the conditions might be in a week or what have you, that is yet another way in which he's now exceeding the authority granted him by the act.
I mean, I know you and James Gallagher successfully sued Gavin Newsom and won in court on some of his executive orders, and that's still going through the appeal process, I think. But has somebody picked up and is there, do you know of any, or maybe you are considering filing one on that exact thing? You know, this has gone on over a year. What justification do you have for even extending them one more day?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at this point, that would be a very compelling argument because, the state of emergency is something that has to be, predicated on not only conditions of extreme peril, but also the inability of local jurisdictions and the usual allotment of state powers to deal with them. And I don't think there's any argument that the sort of emergency powers that Gavin Newsom has been claiming are necessary to address, mitigation of the threat that remains. I mean, every community is well aware of what the virus is, how it spreads, and is perfectly capable of making its own decisions and not having, the most basic facets of daily life still dictated by the whims of one person.
Yeah, we do have a crisis going on, but we, the people, are putting the processes in to take care of that, to get rid of the person who's at the point of doing that. That's Gulag Gavin, who has us locked down. We're talking with Kevin Kiley, Assemblyman from Rockland, California, some of the prettiest country up in there that you'll ever see on that, giving us an update on Gavin Gulag. But I want to kind of, and the recall, I want to kind of shift gears, because I think you introduced some legislation here on schools and things. Give us a little update on that.
Well, one of the things I've introduced a bill about is to try to move towards a system where funding follows the student, a more student-centered system. So ultimately, I think that is, perhaps one of the major opportunities we have coming out of the nightmare of this last year, is that when you have these education systems that have just so spectacularly and tragically failed so many families, I think there is going to be an appetite for a new way of doing things where the dollar follows the child and where parents are in control of their kids' education. And so I have a bill that would take us a step down that path by allowing for full tax deductibility of qualified education expenses. And then it essentially allows for these charitable donations that can go directly towards allowing students to get their education costs and their families get the education costs reimbursed without any sort of out-of-pocket expense on the part of the family.
And I'm sure there's many families in the last year that have had to dole out a significant amount of cash since not only that, I mean, I would say just having your kids at home all the time when they were gone, of that, not only the equipping your house, doing this, probably upgrading internet services and all that. Would these be things that people could possibly get this tax deduction you're proposing in the legislature? Would these got to be things you could use?
Exactly. And in fact, that's sort of the way that we're framing it, is that I've seen surveys showing that 60-70% or more of families have actually had to spend out of pocket for expenses related to remote learning, even though they're already paying taxes for a full public education. All these families have had to supplement that out of pocket, and so the essential premise of my bill is to try to compensate them for those expenses.
And again, I did, and I sent this study to the governor's office over a year ago in the state superintendent of public instruction, and they didn't respond. So, and I did a study on that. Over $20,000 per student before COVID. Over $20,000 per student, K through 12, was the average cost in California. I'm doing an updated study on that right now, and my figures now are well north of $25,000 with all this COVID spending going on and rising. And I just read a poll of that, and it probably was take me another couple of weeks to get it finalized. But I'm betting right now it's going to land somewhere between 25 and 30, and probably closer to 30 with all the spending that's going on. but it just, and I can't remember where the poll is. I'll try to dig it up. But I think in conjunction with this, and you mentioned parents wanting to take more control over their education, I think a new poll out across America, over 70% of parents are now favoring some sort of voucher system,
Right.
something to where they have control over where the money that their kids are for their education, and they direct where it goes. Not state governments, not school districts. They have control to do it. And I think if there was ever an impetus or ever a thing, or maybe there's some good to come out of this COVID thing, I think it has really woke a lot of parents up. Kevin.
I think you're absolutely right. And, the figures you cite are remarkable. I mean, I heard, that the $20,000 number is one that I've heard, that you're probably right when you throw in all of this extra cash that basically has been extracted from different levels of government. You're going to end up far north of that.
It is, and I mean, I didn't really think about it until it just dawned on me about a month ago, because I've thrown that number out for at various meetings, school board meetings, talking to officials and stuff, and I said, if you got a different number, because they want to say, oh, we're only getting $8,500 a year. Well, that's just based on the attendance, which in this year they're going on the previous years, even though we're down 300,000 to 500,000 students. Statewide on this, but they're still getting 100% plus of their cash that they got pre-pandemic with practically almost probably 98.7% of the California public school students in the state of California within the past year have not seen a classroom.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, it is an absolute disgrace. And at this moment, we are still the last state in the country when it comes to students returning to the classroom. We are 50th out of 50. And that is sort of an index of corruption. When you look at the states and how fast or how slow they've been in getting kids back to the classroom, it shows you which state governments have been the most captured by special interests, and California is far and away the one where that corruption is highest.
To show you what California public officials, some of them, excluding our current guest, Kevin Kiley, assembly member from Rockland, California, up there, I think they had a little hearing on some stuff, and some people, both pro and con, on this whole diversity education. And this is a real overall the past things in public education in California. I'm sure putting a diversity curriculum is like a number one top priority of doing right now. I'm sure that's at the concern of practically every parent on that. Take that away. Both pro and con showed up at the assembly for public comments. Tell them what happened, Kevin Kiley.
Well, they couldn't show up because the Capitol has been closed, but they called in, at least, for the public comment that is, a standard part of the legislative process, and is the one sort of a modicum of public input that we have available when a bill is being considered. And yesterday, the chair of the Education Committee just decided to cut off public comment after 10 minutes. There are 40 more people waiting on the line. And by the way, all they get to do is say their name and their affiliation and their position on the bill. So you'd say, my name is John, I'm a concerned parent, and I oppose this bill. That's all you get to say. So it would have taken a few minutes to allow these people to testify. And the chair of the committee just shut it down. And when I objected, he tried to silence my microphone, and which, by the way, is something that this particular chair has done in the past to other legislators, including the current Secretary of State for California, Shirley Weber. But I don't really blame him because, I do blame him, but he's not the problem. If he weren't there, it would just be someone else, a carbon copy that the CTA puts in there. But it's just, this was a new low. I have never seen public comment cut off in a committee hearing. And by the way, it's not like we were there all day or anything. The hearing lasted a couple hours. This was only like the third time the Assembly Education Committee has even met over the course of the last year. It has never held a hearing to consider opening schools. This is the State Assembly Education Committee has never addressed the fact that our schools have been closed for the whole last year. And so this one hearing where you actually have folks who want to chime in for a few minutes, they won't even let that happen.
Again, you would think they would be having almost daily, at least Monday through Friday, hearings on how to open the schools on that, not talking about this. But what even this is even worse than I thought, or that I understood. I thought it was a deal where, of the usual, you get 3 minutes, at a public hearing from the general public to state on that. You mean you had, which you could stay in about 10 or 15 seconds, I oppose this bill or not. And they shut that. You can't even get 10 or 15 seconds to say, I support the bill or not?
Nope. Just cut it off, 10 minutes, completely arbitrary, unlawful in my view. Folks have been waiting, by the way, for quite a long time on the phone, and that was that.
I mean, that's like you say. I mean, if this isn't in the top, of all-time lows on dictatorial policies in the legislature, it's got to be in the all-time top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute disgrace, and it just highlights for you everything that is wrong with our government, where you have politicians whose only sort of purpose is to do what they're told by special interest groups, and could care less what anyone in the public has to say or what actually serves the public interest.
You got anything coming up on the legislation, or probably even more importantly, anything we should be alerted to for duck and cover?
Well, I mean, I have some bills coming up. I have a bill that's going to be heard next week that would make it so that all these fines that that the state has hit businesses and churches with, that those will go away unless the state can actually prove that somehow you caused harm and caused some sort of outbreak or something. So hopefully that will pass and provide some relief to these folks who are on their last legs. I'm also working on a bill to end this whole crazy idea of vaccine passports before it gets any legs, and make sure that doesn't happen in California.
Oh, yes, that's another one. And that's another one. I think it's like 70% of the people in the poll I saw are against that. It was a very high percentage of that. And and I don't know why these not only common sense just makes more sense, and the people all support it, why this can't get done in California. But it is California. But hopefully we'll be changing that around real soon with a recall of Gulag Gavin, and starting to turn around the Assembly and Senate so we can get some more support. So bills like Kevin Kiley's coming up can pass. We'll do this again real soon. Thanks for the update, Assemblyman Kevin Kiley. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Kevin Kiley, Assembly member from Rockland, which is way up there in the northern part of the state of that, giving us an update on the recall, some of the stuff that was going on, the dictatorial policies that are the communist. Let's put it this way: the totalitarian communist techniques that you can't even speak in the public. You can't even say I support X, Y, and Z bill, or I don't. 10 seconds, no, we won't even allow that anymore. It's getting absolutely ridiculous. If there was amongst everything else, we should be recalling Gavin Newsom over that, if nothing else. It's to send the shot, and in 2022, start replacing these nutcases, which is probably very kind, that are pulling these techniques, because if you let them get away with this, it's not going to stop. If you want to know again, as Gavin Newsom said about, it's all these Trump supporters, white supremacists, racists that are trying to recall me, da-da-da-da-da. The Sacramento Press Club, which is the capital of the once great state of California, the once golden state of California, had a debate on the recall, and they had, they had Ann Dunsmore, which is running, some of the pro-recall stuff, but the other one, the first question out of the bow on that was about this. Well, what do you think of the recall, da-da-da-da-da? This is Ace Smith, who's been a long-time Democratic, strategist, pollster, maybe even working for Gulag Gav on this. I think he is, but we'll check that out. But he was part of the panel. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 5 on there with the moderator on that. But this is Ace Smith. at the press club, and this is what he thinks of you, those supporting the recall, such as Jonathan Zackerson, who we've had, who has been, we've had him on the show. He's in charge of Reopen California Schools. You go look him up on Facebook, Twitter, on that. I recently saw a post, and I didn't even know this. I've had him on talking about, the stuff that's going on about trying, because he's heading up a big contingent of doing that. I didn't even know this. He said, I voted for Gavin Newsom. I voted mainly Democrat. But I went out and collected hundreds of signatures to recall Gavin Newsom for the torture he's not only put our kids through, but all of us this year. This is what A. Smith, chief Democratic strategist, has to say. Here we go.
Voted this effort to where we are today with an impending recall election happening. A. Smith, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I mean, we got here because a faction led by Trump Republicans are trying to do a major power grab because they lost power in Washington, D.C. And they have an agenda. And let's be clear about what that agenda is. It's about repealing Roe v. Wade. It's about returning to the days of Prop 187 by microchipping immigrants. It's about killing affordable health care. It's about expanding drilling. It's about turning back the clock on criminal justice. And that's just the start of the list. And how do we know this? Because these are the positions of the folks who are the leaders of the recall. And a campaign being fueled by bigots, racists, haters, Proud Boys, QAnon conspiracy theorists, and anti-vaxxers. And the question today is, do we stand by and let the Trumpers and the Republican Party do to California what they did to America? Or do we fight back? And do we allow them to sow the same hate and division that was sowed in America here in California? Or do we fight back? And I can tell you the answer here is we intend to fight back and we intend to win.
So there you go. If you're for not endangering kids and adults, killing 13 of them because you got 25 of them crammed in an SUV, smuggling them in for $125,000 to $250,000. Reports are the driver got $1,000 a head to drive them in. That's $25,000. Sadly, 13 of them didn't make it. The Border Patrol agent that found one kid wandering out in the desert because the coyotes abandoned him. The mom who sent their kids up from Honduras to walk across two months from Honduras up through Mexico to that because Joe Biden said they could come in. That support the illegal aliens that are here, that have killed the Kate Steinleys and the Dominic Durdens, American citizens who are no longer walking on this earth because criminal aliens that have been deported many times and coming back under your policies, and that you're doubling down with George Gascon and whatever that nut is up in San Francisco that you got in as a DA, and you're destroying our criminal justice system, not allowing Border Patrol to arrest or detain after they get out of prison that nutcase mayor who was sounding the warnings. And on and on and on and on it goes. Your health care that has driven the cost ridiculously, eliminating the free market, where health care is now so expensive you cannot afford to give treatment. Yeah. The fight is on, A. Smith. And the fight is on between the extreme totalitarian, radical, anti-life, and I don't mean, and I'm not talking about abortion, I mean anti-your life people that are on this earth. Anti-drilling, you complete frickin' fool. California's sitting on probably the largest reserves in the world, and we can't drill it because of people like you and your advocates who put a stop to it. Kern County's re-suing because they're trying, that's Central California, Bakersfield. They're suing the state, the federal government to drill Because there are people, not only do we need the oil, there are people are starving to death up there. The ones you say you're trying to help. And all you can do is throw racist, racial epithets, untruths, so you can live in your ivory tower and laugh at us. A. Smith, you got a problem. And you got a political problem when you're losing the Jonathan Zachersons of California who were supporting you and your party and your way and buying into the belief that you actually were concerned about kids and citizens and the environment and anything else. You're the one that should be concerned. And you should be completely concerned when you get exposed trying to run the hate that you're trying to spew out there, just like Gulag Gav, just because you're seeing your power slip away. Yeah, I would be concerned. A. Smith. Flip up number 4, please. The guy with the green circle on there in the center of the deal. Yes, I would be concerned, Mr. Smith, because it's your side that's losing this. Because your side is on the side of evil. You are the one with the wrong policies. You are the one trying to control that for your own benefit. And yeah, it is on, buddy, and it ain't gonna stand. You can keep shouting your Nazi, as the pastor said, your Nazi rhetoric, but it ain't gonna fly. You and your Gestapo are gonna get turned around. We not only have the help from that with our recall, our brethren up in Canada are seeing the same thing. So keep it up, buddy. You're just making our job much more easier to get rid of you and your ilk. We'll be back tomorrow to close it out on a fantastic Friday as we usually do. Who knows what will come up on that? But as 2021 is doubling down on 2020, I'm sure there will be no shortage of stuff to cover tomorrow on the news, as only we do it here on iNewsWire, where you get not only the best guests, but the information you don't get anywhere else. So in 23 hours, see ya!